Hey, we are live talking about how to scale your Amazon PPC ads. I'm David Goldenberg, and I led the marketing for an Amazon brand that grew from 30 million a year to 57 million a year. And what I learned from that is the basis for a lot of what I want to share with you guys today. And we're going to talk about both some high-level principles and also some strategies and really down to nitty-gritty details and practical stuff. So I'm going to get my whiteboard over here and I have that here to help us out. Put this around here. You can see that. Let's put this a little higher up. There we go. That's nice and visible. Put that down a little. There we go. Okay. And so, let's get some markers. There we go. Great. Okay. So, strategy and concept. Forget getting into strategy. We're going to start with the general stuff that many people ignore. And the biggest thing that I hope you learn today is that scaling is the result of learning. Okay. Scale comes from learning. Okay. If you don't learn, that light is kind of killing the reflection here. Right? Scale comes from learning, basically. If you don't understand what is going on in your ad account, then you're not going to be able to do anything to improve. So the first order of business is to understand what the data is saying and what it means. And so let's put that down. So understand your data. And then the next step is to group the data to learn faster. Okay, so let me give you guys a couple examples of grouping your data so that you can learn faster. When you download your Amazon search term report, the search terms are divided up according to what keywords triggered them and what campaigns and so forth. Now, what you'll see is that there's some patterns across campaigns, provided you're advertising the same products, as to what search terms work for them. I say, provided you're advertising the same products, that sounds obvious, but if you have a larger catalog, then some of your product lines will work better for certain keywords, even though they're overlapping. So for example, if we talk about trousers as a keyword or pants, right? So pants in North America means what the British call trousers, but pants in the UK means underwear, right? So for example, depending where people are searching, you might get better results advertising jeans or advertising boxers. But even if we're just staying within the same geographic region, when you have, let's see, the keyword men's trousers, just for argument's sake, you might find that dress pants will sell better on that keyword than jeans or cargo pants or sweatpants. And so when you see the word trousers in a search term, it doesn't matter that it's this particular campaign for the gray model or the black model or for the fitted leg or for the loose leg, whatever it is, right? the style doesn't matter as much. What matters is the overall product line. And if you're seeing that the jeans sell better than the formal trousers, formal pants, or the other way around, so you don't need to see the, let's say, 40 clicks of zero sales in an individual campaign. You can see, let's say, 10 clicks or 12 clicks in a particular campaign on search terms that include the word trousers, and then you can see another 15 or 20 clicks in a different campaign that include the word trousers in those search terms. Again, they're not getting sales. And in the aggregate, you're seeing that there's zero sales across those different search terms. That allows you to see, oh, you know what? This search term doesn't work for this particular product line. I should just make that a negative in the first place. Why does that matter, right? You might say, well, that just saves me money. And, you know, I mean, it's great to have a lower ACoS, but that's not going to scale. That's not going to increase my sales. Well, it does, because the next step, if you are able to bring down your spend on irrelevant traffic, is that you can then bid higher, because the bundle of search terms that you're bidding for is narrower. You've just cut off a bunch of irrelevant clicks that you would have had to pay for otherwise. And so that ability to bid up by narrowing the traffic to only the terms you want allows you to scale in that way. And that's just one example of what happens when you group the data. Another thing that you can do with grouping the data is to analyze the performance. Okay, so I'll just write it down. So first of all, we talked about here search. You guys can see that? Yeah, search. Try to write a little bit bigger. Search terms. Okay, but we also want to learn about ad creative. Okay, and what this means is if you're running a certain custom image, or if you're doing sponsored brands videos, for instance, also for sponsored display video, or if you're using headlines in your sponsored display, if your account still allows you to write your own custom headlines for sponsored brands, they're transitioning over to stop that. But for those people who still have the benefit of doing that, then when you have your own ad creative and you're seeing in several different campaigns that this opening scene in the ad creative is not performing, you don't need again to see, oh, we've got enough clicks to see the pattern in just that one campaign. If you have the same creative, or at least the same opening scene across multiple campaigns, and the creative there is not working, the number one thing you want to check with your sponsored brand videos is this particular aspect. It's the ad creative. And by doing so, you can basically see the pattern and say, oh, you know what, that opening scene doesn't engage people so much. Maybe I should change this around. Okay. There's another aspect of your data that people are not learning and not studying very closely, and I think it deserves more attention, and that is the impression share report. Get my eraser. It's in a different room. I need a different eraser. Let me know if you guys have any questions, of course. Anytime you want to type your questions in the comment, they are very welcome. All right. So if for those of you just joining us right now, we're talking about how to scale your Amazon ads. I'm David Goldberg. I led the marketing for an Amazon brand that grew from 30 million a year to 57 million. And what we want to talk about next is the impression share report. Impression share. Now, there's two kinds of impression shares in Amazon. You need to know the difference because otherwise the numbers won't make sense to you. There's impression share for search terms. That is a downloadable report you can get within your report section in Amazon advertising. But in the web interface, you'll also see another metric, and that is at the keyword level. If anybody can tell me what the difference is, you get 10 bonus points, and you can ask me the first question for today. So for search terms, that is the precise order of the words with the exact same spelling, right? So singular or plural is not considered the same search term, even to the extent of including stop words like of, the, and, but, for. If that is included or not included in a search term, that makes a difference as to the search term impression share. For example, tripod for camera is not the same as tripod camera for these purposes. Now, the keyword impression share, which is shown in your user interface, is an entirely different thing. And what that tells you is the percentage of potential impressions you could have got across all matching search terms. Now, that's a pretty difficult number to understand and appreciate with any degree of accuracy. I'll tell you why. Because the keyword, even if you've got an exact match keyword, it doesn't work the same way exact match used to work, where it had to be the exact spelling and the exact order of the words with nothing before, after, or in the middle. Nowadays, Amazon does what's called intent matching. And so if any search term, according to their algorithm, matches the intent of the keyword you've targeted, right? In our previous example, camera tripod, tripod camera, I mean, then they will also match your ad to that search term. For example, if somebody writes stand for camera and you're targeting tripod for camera, they might show your ad as well, even though you didn't have the word stand in your search, in your keyword whatsoever. And so when you see the keyword impression share for tripod for camera, that is going to include the search term stand for camera. Okay. Now, so that's just a little quick explanation about the difference between these. So I wouldn't look too much at that because they can just include so much junk under this, and their algorithm has gone a lot better than it was in the past in many cases. Depends how precise your keyword is and how much actual search volume there is on that. The less search volume there is, the more likely they are to show you for a whole bunch of other random stuff. And the more vague your keyword is, also the more likely you are to get a bunch of random stuff. But this search term report has a super field in it, which I'm a big fan of, and that is the date field. Okay. What you can do with date is you can sort by date. What is this good for? Okay. You go old to new. And that'll show you the progression over time of your impression share. So what percentage of the available impressions on a given search term you're getting. as well as that will show you your rank for that search term. So for example, if you are ranked first or if you're ranked 10th and so forth. It tends to vary a little bit day to day. What you're interested to see is the trend. Am I mostly number one? Am I mostly number five, etc. When you pair this with your data on when you change the bids, you can see very clearly if an increase in bid got your impression share to increase, or whether you're just giving more money to Amazon for no constructive purpose. And what you can do also with this is see, is there even a room to increase to scale further on this search term? So for example, if you're at 80% or higher, we call this impression share, then I wouldn't bother to increase your bid because you're getting almost all of the available impressions, and Amazon likes a little bit of variety in their distribution of what ads are shown because that allows them to find something that might beat their existing winner. So at 80% plus, you're the winner for that search term, but they don't want to give you 100% of the traffic if they can avoid it because they might find something that's better. So they always want to keep experimenting and testing, not with a high percentage of their impressions, but that is the case. And you'll see this even for your branded search terms. It'll be pretty rare unless you're a really tiny brand to get 100% of your impression share. So if you're above 80%, you don't want to raise the bid. If you're below that, then you want to monitor this also if you're going to decrease the bid, or if you're above it. In any case, when you're decreasing the bid, you want to see what difference does it make to my impression share, and what difference does it make to the number of impressions I'm getting per day? Because the number of impressions you get per day is not usually going to vary dramatically from one day to the next. You can also compare the same day from one week to the next same day the following week, right? You can compare Sunday to Sunday so that you can eliminate variation within the week, which is a normal thing. For example, weekdays in some categories perform better, in some categories it's weekends that perform better. When you lower your bid, you need to expect that you probably will lose some of your impression share, but at least that way you won't be surprised when you check this again and you can see, okay, was I willing to lose that amount of impressions and that amount of clicks and sales per day in order to get, for example, my ACOS where I wanted to be on this keyword? Or was this too much of a loss and I'm going to accept the higher ACOS on this search term for whatever reason? Maybe I want to rank, maybe it's strategic, it drives more, brand awareness or brand searches down the funnel, etc. So if you are decreasing the bids, right, what happened on the following days, right? How did the number share where you're at, 109 impressions, and then it went down to 50 and 47 averaging, or how did that number change over time? So this is a really useful place to find opportunities to scale, because if you're getting, for example, 20% of the impression share and your ACOS is not already at the ceiling that you're willing to tolerate, then boom, you found an opportunity to increase your sales pretty easily just by raising the bids. So all you need to do is basically take this impression share report, okay, and put in two filters. So filter number one is share less than, let's call it 80%. Okay, you can adjust this number however you see fit. You can put it under 50%, under whatever. Okay, and filter number 2 is going to be ACOS under target. Simple, right? But hardly anybody talks about this report. Most people aren't even aware, I think, that it exists. And they'll tell you, oh, if your keyword's working, then you should raise bids. But like we talked about before, you might already be at the maximum you can get, which is basically above 80% for that search term. Now, we've talked about that. I want to talk about A/B testing because that is super valuable, especially with your sponsored brands and your sponsored display, which are completely slept on by loads of people. Okay, and so we're gonna pause and restart the stream. I think we've got not such a great thumbnail, and I think we can change that up quickly and get some more people to join us. Stick around. I hope to get this back up real quick. Just keep on my channel on the live tab.